Type 3 watershed experiment is, type 3 refers to type 3 watershed, that is, will be the watershed draining in the smallest fish-bearing stream. Um, the study goals are to expand the toolbox of management practices in upland and riparian forests. And another goal was, and it continues to be, building capacity to find some innovative solutions for responding to rapidly changing conditions. And so you can very clearly see the adaptive management context of this study. So, in terms of study philosophy, we, from the very beginning, at the conceptualizing this study, we wanted to test the treatments alternative to current management practices in the OESF that are integrative, meaning that they serve both economic and environmental objectives. So we're not experimenting with something that's purely conservationist or something that was driven entirely by increasing revenue from these areas. And so this is this concept of ecosystem well-being, where we're trying to elevate both community well-being and environmental well-being, and exploring these interactions of the two through learning. And then we also, from the very beginning, were clear that we want to organize a research that is applied research that responds directly to land management uncertainties, and responding to questions from managers and also from stakeholders here, particularly locally. And stakeholders are very actively involved. So we have had stakeholders participating in identifying what questions we want to answer, what treatments we want to implement, all the way through reviewing various study plans, monitoring protocols, and participating in different forms, field tours, learning groups, and so on. So multiple research partners in this T3 watershed experiment. You can see the organizations here and a list of principal investigators, both from DNR and the external organizations listed. It's a long list. I will not go through it, but all this is available, and I'll show you the website later for that. So where does this take place? In the Olympic Experimental State Forest, you're looking at one of our one of the 16 experimental watersheds. And these are the predominant conditions. You can see it also represented on the graph here, with majority of our forests being in this age class of 40 to 60-year-old. As a result of active forest in the 70s and in the 80s. You already in this morning saw this graph in the morning presentations. So this is a condition that at the moment is providing decreased ecological values, as well as, I would say, decreased economic values. It has more potential to that. So can we improve? Can we increase the sustainability? That's what we're trying to do. I will not go into the experimental treatments very in details. I just want to say that we're experimenting with several upland areas, which are in this brownish color, and several riparian treatments. And we're comparing those to, so there are other alternative management alternative 1 and 2. And we're comparing them to our standard management practices in the OESF, which for the purpose of this experiment is we have fixed no-entry riparian buffers. And in the uplands, it's our two standard practices, variable retention harvest and variable density thinning. Because it's a research experiment and we want to track the influence of background environmental conditions and how those may be changing, our stance and other response variables, we're also having no management controls, which is not part of our conservation of our management strategy on state lands, but we're doing it for the purpose of this experiment. Where it takes place, it is in the Clearwater and Hoh River basins, 16 watersheds. So each of the four strategies that I showed you is replicated 4 times in 4 blocks. Right, so they're color-coded. So this is in the clay lock area, where you have each of the experimental strategies, management strategies represented once. And then we have 3 more blocks of that. The total area is 20,000 acres of these 16 watersheds. Not the entire watershed is being manipulated. So you can see here the portion of the watershed. So roughly, we were looking for 13% of an actively managed watersheds outside of the 4 no management control watersheds. So 13% of the watershed is being manipulated, and you can see the timber harvest delineated here in these watersheds. Different colors represent different experimental treatments, riparian and upland. So a total about 2,000 acres of harvest will happen that will launch the experimentation of the treatments. Some of the treatments do have experimental components in the harvest, but majority of them experimentation actually happens with the regeneration. And you heard about this in Jeff Comnick's model of how he struggles to model the growth of various species and various clumping patterns of planting and so on. So this is operational style study. It is implemented to DNR timber cell program as well as DNR silviculture program in operational size timber cell units. So this is a very quick summary over of the project. You can read more on it online. Olympic Natural Resources Center has a lot of information, DNR website. I'll put a link at the end about that. Status. So we have been collecting data, pre-harvest sampling in stream and riparian areas since 2020. We have been collecting data, remote sensing data, drone LiDAR, that you saw at the talk from Bob McGoey this morning, and analysis since 2021, and this is continuing. We have a peer-reviewed riparian study plan, a peer-reviewed upland study plan about all these prescriptions, our research hypothesis, expected outcomes, the way we will monitor the study design. We are engaged in 2 major modeling efforts, and you heard presentations on both of those. In the morning, you saw a presentation from Emily on modeling food chain responses to experimental treatments, and later you heard Jeff Comnick about modeling forest growth. And reports on both these are coming in July. And so those will be used to really develop some testable hypotheses based on the modeling projections. And then this study is implemented, as I said, operationally, so through 13 timber sales, which the foresters here and geologists, biologists, other practitioners here in the Olympic region planned and laid out. Of these, 8 timber sales have been sold, and 2 timber sales are currently being logged. And we are planning to have the rest of the sales auctioned very quickly in the next few months. And there's an active silviculture coordination right now in the way to plan for regenerating these experimentally. And quick update on stakeholder participation. So we're engaging stakeholders, environmental groups, timber industry, local community, various groups, and as well as tribes, in learning-based collaboration, where all these groups are involved in asking questions, what questions we should be asking in the study, how we should be approaching the implementation of the treatments and monitoring. And this has been implemented through various field tours and document review and meetings, but really, what really is interesting in this project is we kicked off at the last OESF conference 7 learning groups, and you can see them. And so these learning groups have been operating, so they consist of participants from all these stakeholder, they consist of researchers, DNR staff, tribes, and stakeholders. And so these learning groups have been, some are more active, others are less active. You've seen the products of some of them. For example, the Cedar Browse poster, the management plan developed in one of these groups. You saw related to another group, Management History, a poster from Karina. And so you collectively are invited to join the learning group if you'd like to do one. And I'll link all these possibilities for connection at the end. So this is a very quick run through.